Morning, everybody. So today we're going to run through all the good, the bad, and the ugly on my 2019 Ram because yeah, it's goodbye Ram, hello Chevy. So stay tuned. I want to show you everything that I've been dealing with over the last 3 years. All right, so first off, the big things. I bought the truck in May of 2020. So right in the middle of the pandemic, which as it turned out was a good time to buy a truck. Now, 3.5 years later, 72,000 kilometers, which is approximately 50,000 miles. Not a lot of mileage. However, this Cummins has been flawless. Now, I did have the recall on the CP4 Bosch pump, so it was replaced, so I never had to deal with what some guys on the internet did. I'm assuming they went back to a CP3, but therein lays another interesting thing. You know, they never told me what they replaced that pump with. Even though I asked, and never mind at the dealer, I called people that I know at the head office, and their answer was, we put in the appropriate pump. But did you go back to a CP3? Did you modify the CP4? You know, there are always certain things with the manufacturers that they will play very close to the vest. And even for guys like us with an inside track, they won't tell you. It hasn't caused me any issues. However, I like to know. Now, this is the 6-speed transmission on this truck. It's just the stock transmission. I haven't had any issues with it. Again, the internet is full of stories about this tranny, but really for my purposes, it's done well. And it's well mated to this particular Cummins. It pulls really nicely, particularly in the lower gears. And so as far as drivetrain is concerned, no problems whatsoever. Hey everybody, listen, you've heard us talk about the Giddy Ups here on the Truck King channel. So this is a new set that I've got in my truck. Now these, unlike the synthetic simple ones that we sold out of last summer, are handmade, all leather, hand stitched. These are unique, these are one of a kind, all made by John out there in Alberta, Canada. And if you're interested in these for your truck, all you have to do is reach out to us at hey@truckking.ca. That's H-E-Y at truckking.ca. We'll send you photos, prices, and delivery information. Do that soon. So one of the few modifications that I did do to the truck is swap out the OEM tires for these Toyo Open Country AT3s. Now I reported on these previously, but today these tires have got 40,000 miles, 60,000 kilometers on them. So let's have a look and see how they've been wearing. So right now I'll throw up on screen what these measured as compared to measurements that we took like a year and 2 years ago. So just a few words on the performance. These are a little louder than the stock tires. They're a little bit more aggressive, but on the other hand, in snowy, sloppy conditions or mud, they work really well. They just really dig through. The other side of that is that they also have a tendency to fling, particularly in slush. As you're turning, you get a lot of slush up on the mirror. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I just noticed it happened a few times. Now, of course, drove this truck a lot empty, but also drove with that trailer and have driven with this one and a previous trailer, probably done well over 14,000 miles. So I can also say that carrying 12, 13, 14,000 pound load on those rear tires, the truck did well. So I should point out that this is a big horn trim. It's what was on the lot at the time. However, they did option it up with a number of things, such as the big center stack screen. And I just want to talk real quick about the Uconnect system that Ram has in this particular truck. Now, I'm hoping that eventually they're getting away from that, because this thing is glitchy. And what I mean by glitchy is that just all on its own, it would switch from, say, metric to imperial measurements. I'd look at it and all of a sudden my nav system would be in miles rather than in kilometers. So it would do weird things like that occasionally. And then again, sometimes the nav system itself just was utterly wrong. I don't know what the answer to that was in the end. But the last part of this was that Ram made a deal with an outside third-party internet provider. So when we originally had the truck, we did have onboard internet. You had to sign up for it. And we did that the first year, didn't do it the second year. By the time the third year came along and we were headed south and my wife tried to do it again, Ram advised her that they no longer had that agreement in place. And she said, okay, well, who's the new provider? And they said, well, we don't have one. So, yeah, you think you can always have the internet? No, only if all these things are happening in the background. And then when deals change at the corporate level, all of a sudden you're left holding the bag. Now, the other things I want to say about the interior, I still believe the Ram has one of the best interiors out there. I love the design. I've really enjoyed driving this truck. Everything in here is where it should be. It works, the buttons, the knobs. And in particular, I want to mention the seats, because these are just very basic cloth seats. And I'm looking at 3 years later, the wear. And the wear on these seats is actually very good. And in addition to which, like everybody else, I've spilled stuff in here, and the gray doesn't really show that badly. So all in all, I give this a big thumbs up in terms of the seats, the comfort of the seats, and the material that they use. Now, what I don't like is the fact that this leather-wrapped steering wheel, which is very pretty, for some reason, where I tend to hold the wheel up here, yeah, this is wearing. It's wearing bad enough now that in another year, this is going to perforate. Maybe that's because I just sweat acid. I don't know what the answer here is. But in retrospect, I just look at it and I say, well, if the wheel is getting touched all the time, you got to have a material on here that's going to wear better than this one. All right, so let's talk about the business end of the truck. So first of all, I did put the Mopar soft tonneau on this after the fact. You know what? And this thing has been flawless. And I particularly went with the soft top because it folds into 3, but if I want to take it off, I can do it by myself. You know, there's just never anybody around when you need their help. So the hard covers, despite the fact that they're good, you know, and this one has had as much as like 6 inches of heavy wet snow on it. And it is still maintained its shape. I brush it off and away you go. And as far as inside is concerned, everything has remained dry. So that's a shout out to Mopar. They built a nice tonneau cover. Now, as far as Ram is concerned and this particular bed, yeah, I can't get in this bed, literally, without, you know, doing Cirque du Soleil acrobatics. All right. So I went to the aftermarket and I purchased this to help me get into the bed of my truck. So, I mean, it works, but, you know, it's almost 3 years old now, so it's starting to get a little rusty, looking a little ratty. And of course, I had to drill into my tailgate. So, you know what, Ram, and you guys still need to do this. Never mind, this truck's 3 years old. You need to come up with a better solution to give guys entry in and out of the bed. Because I actually use my truck, so I'm in and out of here quite a bit. So let's talk about the Curt Crosswing fifth wheel hitch. So we've covered this on the channel, but let me just say that I towed down south and back again, over 6,000 miles last winter with this. And you know what? It really works well. And other than the fact that it's a lighter weight hitch, meaning that one guy can handle it without really breaking his back, The big thing here is that it fixes onto the gooseneck ball, and it's offset by 8.5 inches. So it actually takes that pin position and pushes it back 8.5 inches. So why does that matter? Well, it matters when you've got a 6-foot 4-inch bed on your truck, and it cuts down on your turning radius. And as some of you have already seen, I did manage to smash my back window last winter in New Mexico for exactly that reason. And hence the reason that on the new Chevy that I just bought, I went with a traditional 8-foot bed, because I'm never going to have that problem again. So if you do have this kind of truck, if you're not in the market to buy something new, if you don't want an 8-foot bed, this is actually a good solution. It's just, yeah, you still got to pay attention to how your trailer swings. Now, as far as the spray and bed liner, as far as the tie downs are concerned, spray and bed liner, very good. I've had all kinds of stuff in here, and I have not even managed to scratch it. However, tie downs, bare minimum, 2 in each corner, and there's nothing towards the center. I like tie downs. Currently, some other brands have 3 in each of those positions. And I particularly like one that's high up, because I always forget to run ropes through them before I'm finished loading. At which point, yeah, try to dig down to that low tie down with the end of your rope. All right, so in general, the things that I've mentioned to you, you'd say, okay, every truck has got issues. However, most of what's going on with this truck has been very, very good. So why am I getting rid of it? Well, as I've mentioned previously, but I'll tell you again, it's basically because of these coil springs, all right? The 3/4 ton in the Ram has coil springs. Meanwhile, the 1 ton still has leafs. What does that matter? Coils are great for an empty drive. I mean, they are just better. This truck does not rattle your teeth on the road when it's empty. However, when you put a lot of weight on the back, those coils get sloppy. They're wishy-washy. And in the case of my trailer here, which is in excess of 14,000 pounds, even though the truck handles the weight, once it gets on there, the whole back end of that truck starts doing this. And trust me, when you're going to drive this for days at a time, that is, it's more than annoying, it's dangerous if you're not paying attention to it. So obviously it can be done, because I did it, down and back, 6,000 miles. But when I got home, I decided, basically for the sake of the channel, I'm going to switch out trucks. Now, guys are saying, so why are you going to Chevy? Honestly, because it's their turn. It's not because there was anything with the Chevy that was particularly like, oh, it's so much better. No. And in 2 years' time, after I've been reporting on how the Chevy's been treating me, I plan on moving on towards, say, a Ford, because I want to keep bringing that sort of information to the channel. And to all the guys that said, hey, you could put airbags on this truck, you're absolutely right. But you know what? I just wanted to see, for our purposes, what the best tow rig was from the factory, rather than doing modifications to my existing truck. So if you're wondering why I'm doing it for you guys. That's why I'm doing it. And hopefully that new truck should be here before Christmas. So we're coming to the end of this one, folks. But, let's just have a quick word about prices, because that is top of mind for everybody these days. When this truck was new, and I bought it in May of 2020, the MSRP was right around $61,000. Now, that was excluding options, so just the base Bighorn, but with the diesel. So when we just now looked up a new truck with the diesel, with the Bighorn trim, we are at slightly over $80,000. Now, that's Canadian dollars. And so it just shows you that, yeah, if you think trucks have gotten expensive, yeah, that's a $20,000 increase in just the last 3 years. But hey, that's the way of the world at the moment. You always have a choice, buy or don't buy. So anyway, as I said, that's it for this one. Now, my new truck's coming shortly, so by the way, this one's for sale. So if you're interested in talking to me about it, and listen, I take care of my equipment. So I've got all the records. I'll give you everything that you want, including some nice pictures. Get in touch with me at hey@truckking.ca. That's HEY @truckking.ca. truckking.ca. Thanks, everybody.